matter with Senator Murray Cerny Kearney.
Much, Ciarán, and you're very welcome, Minister, as always. Minister, I am raising a commencement in the name of the Fatima Groups United, who operate in the F2 down in Dublin 8, and they have the most magnificent facility as part of the whole redevelopment of Fatima. But in it, they have every room chock-a-block with services to the community, so they really live up to what they do. They ran a pilot programme for 32 children that was very successful, aged 4 to 18. They're for families come in the Dublin 8 and Dublin 12 area, principally families that were on a waiting list for the CDNT. The referral came from the CDNT or TUSLA or local schools. They ran a children's activity club where families could access a range of programmes. It was to do with socialising, giving supports to children who were waiting on treatment services, and that was really their public. This is an area that experiences a high level of social deprivation, and that finds themselves, I suppose, filling a gap that parents in these areas can't afford any private services. They can't afford, so they're really reliant on this. The programme was run on a previous iteration of the Strengthening Disabilities Services Fund. And they made the application based on the pilot and on the outcomes. And, you know, you have parents saying things like, you know, being here has saved me. My anxiety went through the roof. I'm more relaxed. I understand him more and see his needs. I got so much information to help me cope. We do more things now because we aren't judged as much and because I know what works for him. So I now know not to go to busy places and do things at pace. Our home life is much better. We aren't as isolated anymore and my nerves aren't as bad. So this was a holistic of caring for children with autism, children who are neurodiverse, and their parents, and assisting that in that exchange between parent and child, along with other children in these activity clubs. They made an application, and their application went in on the 10th of November, in accordance with the deadlines on the Strengthening Disability Service Fund. They were notified on the 27th of November that successful programmes would be advised. In February, they sought an update because they were anxious that their pilot programme money was running out in June. And they were told there's a huge level of applicants that they'd hear back. In April, the same. In April, I got on board, starting seeking monies for them. The 23rd of April, I got a letter from the HSE telling me that there had been a reference from the department to the HSE and that this is who I should write for an update. Yeah, no, I'm with you all the way on that. And then in June, finally, a further letter, and then they followed up on that email, as did I, only to receive the word back that they had been refused. So here you have 32 children reliant on this service, a plan to increase it to 60, and we have now a situation where it cannot go ahead because of the piecemeal funding. So I suppose here you have, they ran a pilot, it's very successful. It's exactly the sort of thing that you really need in empowering parents, in supporting children, doing it in a very holistic manner for the whole family in an area of social deprivation. So in every way, it hits all of the things that I know you passionately get up here and speak about. It's an ideal support, and yet it cannot continue now because they refuse funding. So my question is, what are the criteria here, and how and why did they not be successful?
Thank you, Chair. And Senator, I thank you profusely for raising this on the floor of the Senate. I wondered how long it would be before somebody would put in a priority or an oral question or raise it on the floor. So I am delighted to be here before you to answer this. So I'm going to give, by way of background, I think it's important. And the by way of background actually ensures that I can return to the department. So we'll do the by way of background first. So, as Minister for Disability, I believe it is important for me to be clear in saying that the development of any child with a disability to reach their full potential remains a priority for me. Both this Government and the HSE are committed to further developing and enhancing children's disability service access across the state. So the Children's Disability Service Grant Fund was a new funding initiative open to organisations, including community groups and service providers, providers with the aim of supporting children on a waiting list for children's disability network team services and adding value to existing HSE children's disability services. Plus also, I think, Senator, how you put it, recognising there is a lot of work going out there that might not actually have an SLA, that might not have a grant, but is actually doing a powerful lot of good to families in communities where parents can't afford the €100 a week for therapy intervention. I think it's important to say it in that context. So there is an appetite among service providers across the country to support our children, and as a result, the grant funding saw a huge response from voluntary groups, community groups and private agencies. The HSE saw over 500 applications to the grant fund, ranging from proposals to several €1,000 to a large project seeking millions. The total funding sought was almost €45 million. There was a very high number of applicants. In actual fact, there was 500 of it. So you asked another question then is, how was it assessed? So the Children's Disability Service Grant Evaluation Panel was formed by the HSE to assess all applications based on the following criteria: quality and coherence of proposal, contribution of well-being of children and families, potential lasting impact, capacity and sustainability of providers to deliver person-centred services and comply with standards, and value for money. So the primary objective of the panel was to set up a framework of service providers from which children's disability network managers would draw down supports for waitlisted children who were waiting services from the CD&T. Satisfying this objective was the primary consideration of the evaluators. The evaluator panel also outlined that this initiative was also primary for children waiting services rather than ones already in receipt of them, that services would not have additional fees that families would have to pay. So the evaluation panel was pleased to see the diverse and innovative services and the supports that local and national groups are providing for children with disabilities, and was impressed with the range of opportunities they give for children with disabilities to participate in social and community life. The very high number of applicants meant that there was strong competition for finite funds and a short listed fund. So one of the questions I'm sure you asked me there was, where was the funds coming from? It was from time-related savings from staff that I hadn't recruited, and that's where the funds were to come. And the CEO of the HSE was adamant that this funding would be used in this regard. It was from staff and time-related savings that was not used to populate the teams. The projects were not shortlisted based on the numbers of factors, including not being open to children on a CD&T waiting list, requirements for parents to pay fees, value of money, lack of governance. So in total, 52 projects were selected by the HSE out of the 500 submitted, and I'm grateful to see the enthusiasm, but I am also very conscious. It tells us what the state needs to support the existing services within the state. The state needs the 45 million to support the community, the voluntary, but it's also important to recognise some of our voluntary groups are volunteers. They're competing where you have a background staff of people that are paid to fill out applications.
Thank you, Minister Senator.
Thank you, and I think that's a really, really good point, Minister. The F2, I do a legal support clinic there every fortnight. And I am always amazed at the sheer use by the local community, the creativity, the support. They identify needs in the local community, and then they go in and they do their best to professionally meet those needs. So there was a professional recruited here on a salary previously, providing a service to parents, so a professional intervention. So from that point of view, from a qualitative analysis of it, this programme would have stood up to any sort of assessment. I suppose your reply, so you know, naturally they're disappointed. Your reply tells me that out of 52 out of 500, how many more? The 500, I hope it'll empower you going in negotiating in a budget that clearly we have a massive need. I'm at a little bit of a loss as where do they go now, because there isn't anywhere for them to go now, and that worries me.
Thank you very much, Senator. So I'm not at a loss as to where we go next. And the opportunity here is that the HSE have a list of fantastic projects to the guts of 438 projects that need support. And they are predominantly from the community and voluntary sector. And they are the ones that are plugging the gaps. And they are actually where we have pilots should actually become part and parcel of the support mechanism. If you were to ask me for the CDNT, they should be embedded in our communities right across. And it also would give us an opportunity of actually growing and enhancing that universal support that we talk about all the time with PDS. So where do we go? We go back to DEEPR. I think that DEEPR need to sanction that funding. So at the end of last year, no doubt to say that the Department of Disabilities had run over budget, and with all the best will of the CEO, and there was only so much funding left in the pot at the end of the year. He wasn't allowed to use what was unspent or what was within that time-related savings because there was a deficit being ran. I think in actual fact there is a need for emergency funding to be granted to meet the shortfall of these community groups that so valuably need them, that would enhance the camps that we're talking about at the moment. I am pushing and pulling every lever, but I have no doubt with your good support and with Minister O'Donoghue in DEEPR that actually we could pull more levers.
Thank you.